We're on the multiple mirrors. Are you all yet? We're in the host queue. We're all right on multiple mirrors.
Assalamu alaikum. Variation of worship and devotion has been significant through time and by individual choice. Institutions of hierarchic obeisance and restrictive clerical authority have demonized imaginative and enthusiastic observation of worship, including unauthorized foci. By the time of the rise of Satanisms in the late 20th century, ingrained taboos against unlicensed worship kept those formerly conscripted by abstemious and constipated religion strapped either to fantasy abstractions, called archetypes, for which there has never been any reliable evidence, or to ridiculous extremes of atheism. Fearing the mechanisms of religion while adopting its trappings, church, Bible, Pope, etc., they projected their standards of worship to outrageous absurdity, such as worshipping oneself as a god. Given the severe disabilities of early Satanisms in their practical religious knowledge and skills, it is completely expectable that the liberation available once the chains of Christian domination were thrown off would only slowly be exercised. Levian black masses being what they were, it is not altogether clear what may be said of early Satanisms or their participants as regards means or interests of worship. Through the decades, more theistic and devotional alternatives developed, only some of which clearly delineated practical dimensions, or sought any actual worship in pursuit of aims. It would take the manifestation of theistic Satanism and demonolatry to describe in serious fashion the rudiments of worshipful relations with daemons of any kind, and even this was pursued tentatively. The least reputable aims of idolatry are those which seek, on the one hand, to appropriate the boons or status of an alien culture to one's own control, or to acquire by appeal or appeasement a return for investment on what is offered to the object or entity in question. More common to the early phases of satanity are appropriation of, or the transgressive act of making offerings to, the anti-god. Secondary to the conventional Satanian is the use of the worshipful focus as a reflection on the character desired or emphasized by the worshipper, in intensity and identification. As the motivation for strict unification between the idolatrous and idol has subsided, so also has clarity in relation to motivation dissolved. Realizing the fictional aspect of the solid predisposes the hopeful toward the vision that, beyond the ever-changing material maelstrom, there lies a source, or metaphysical determiner of life's circumstances and events. Comparative to the organic process through which we actually live, the media of resin, ceramic, stone, or metal in the fashioning of focal statuary allows a symbolic connection to this imagined realm. It gives an experiential impression of unchangingness to those associating with worship a statue or symbolic object, whether as part of a conventional and devotional rite or in the secular context of ordinary acquisition or possession. The act of idolatry is an indulgence in and reverence for the ideals and virtues of the object of devotion. While the primary location of idols is the home altar or the more grandiose mystic temple, once the Satanian begins to externalize and put physical form to practical worship, more specific and specialized locales may be explored, including the Chamber of Art, Garden of Delights, Elder Grove, Crystal Cave, Hidden Grotto, Sacred Shrine, or Daemonic Temple. The most important aspect of idolatry, however, is the selection of the idol itself. Though complete obeisance may be more easily achieved before a natural object or being, such as a feather, stone, or tree, Other more specific or powerful results may be obtained by the selection of a personal idol for worship, such as a painting, photograph, statue, or human being. The most important element of this selection is one's responsibility and authority overarching the worshipful process and event. It is one thing to decide to worship one's spouse in the flesh, quite another to cede to her all one's autonomy and make of her a micromanager of one's affairs. Ultimately, there is no reason that a coherent and wily aspirant ought be limited in terms of what she might idolize. The diversity of treatment, as well as the rational self-interest of the idolater, will serve to protect the sane from abuse by what or whom she selects as her foci. Whether she is interested in cynically transgressing by making jelly offerings to a jar of peanut butter, identifying with and venerating a fictional character out of legend or popular lore, such as Merlin or Harry Potter, dedicating herself and her future endeavors to the benefaction of whatever Satan seems to be, or actually doing what many contemporary Satanists proclaim to enjoy and worship herself as a god, there are limitless options available to the prospective idolater. Relevant factors to consider here include whether one's religious or anti-religious biases serve to limit one's options in exploring idolatry. If one is facing hostile impingement in one's practical arena, such as an insulting friend, a judgmental family member, or a nosy neighbor, and if one has moved past the stage of experimental testing and into the possibility of real benefit. Study and evade myopic blinders before moving on to practice. Get rid of or escape the impingements, perhaps changing the zone of practice, and test until perceiving successful results. Orienting around the idolater's interests and values will help to keep the practical outcome geared toward the beneficial rather than the exploitative. Where opportunities arise for the idolater to learn, grow, and mature towards self-empowerment, so this ought to be seen as worthwhile, regardless of how this may be critically reviewed by mocking, ignorant outsiders. What the Satanian must come to understand is that the self-centered, self-serving character of self-religion makes pleasing cynics and satisfying mockers completely unnecessary in the context of an enjoyable and profitable idolatry. How worship is understood and manipulated by religious hierarchs and their institutions, or castigated by anti-theists, is unimportant to the empowered idolater. Contrary to the competitive and envious warnings issued by jealous gods and their ignorant zealots, there is nothing wrong with idolatry, save, like most indulgences, that they are provided a greater portion of attention and resource than they may fruitfully bear. Moreover, idolatry may become an essential and useful emphasis in a life that is oriented and qualitative. Pursued with intensity and sincerity, idolatry may become a regular and ecstatic practice, leading to a beneficial relationship between the appreciative and the adored. This is Troll Towelhead, signing off from the fringes of cyberspace.
Miasto, obserwujący,